Podcast with your host Mark Kennedy. Have the Limerick hat on. Obviously, we have Rory Walsh, Kieran Collins with us today. Lads, how are things?
Very good, Mark.
Good, Mark, yourself?
Great, absolutely jubilant there. I suppose, guys, look, we'll just get straight down to it. The All-Ireland final, just a quick video stream just to kind of capture our thoughts after Limerick's historic and heroic 4-in-a-row win over Kilkenny. We'll have a look at all the key incidents here. I suppose, Rory, know you're pressed for time today. We'll get kind of teams of the year and your hurler of the year as well. I suppose, guys, 30 points to 215. Kieran, these are heady days for Limerick hurling. We've said it last year, but I think yesterday, from a Croke Park perspective, I thought it was one of the best sporting moments of my life, really. I suppose, your thoughts? I think you're on mute there, Kieran. Yeah, Rory, while Kieran's adjusting the old audio volumes there, I suppose this show is beset by tech gremlins, but I suppose, Rory, from your perspective anyway, from a Clare perspective, what was your overriding feeling on that performance yesterday from Limerick?
Well, the second half performance was as good as any we've ever seen in Croke Park. We even, let's say, from the 30th minute on, from the way Limerick responded to that goal, the last 10 minutes, the way they went to goal in the second half as well, when Limerick just had taken over and had fired, a couple of points, Kilkenny went down. It should have been a sucker punt for Limerick, but they just took the blow in their stride and went back up the field then and started piling scores from all sorts of angles. It was some feat of shooting, really, to be honest, like a 75% record. And we're talking about a day where there was a mist and wind. It wasn't ideal conditions for hurling. So to shoot that in an All-Ireland final in any day is something special, but to do it with weather the way it was. And I think that goes down maybe to shot selection in the first half, playing the conditions well, not shooting from outside the range. And you could see just last night in the highlights and Sunday game, they showed a few examples of how Limerick worked the ball into, maybe shooting around the 45, definitely inside the 65. That's where they took on their shots from play in the first half and just made a big difference. That they weren't, the way, especially in a final when a lot of wides can happen and nerves can go through a team a bit. I thought some of the Limerick players like David really started nervous when he switched to midfield. He really came into it and got on the shoulder of Keane Lynch for a point just before the end and had a really good second half. But a lot of players, like, no matter how many occasions you're in, the All-Ireland final still brings nerves on. And the fact Limerick took their shots from the I was going to say the right angles, but from made a huge difference in the game, and they were able to take the intensity Kilkenny brought. They matched them for it, and then Limerick, as we know, can keep going longer with it. They outlasted Kilkenny in terms of that, and Kilkenny wilted big time. And from Kilkenny perspective, I suppose, forwards wise, we spoke about it in our preview that Kilkenny forwards needed to step up, and Tom Phelan was the only one of the aforementioned forwards that actually did improve in his performance. Billy Ryan, I don't know, he 1 possession, 2 possessions. Martin Keogh, no score, I think. John Donnelly had a point. TJ Reid, no score from play. I know he won a couple of frees and look, was a danger and a threat. Owen Cody just 1 score. And we'd said that if Limerick could mark Owen Cody and deal with TJ Reid as well, and cut down the amount of frees that TJ had been scoring in previous games, and that's what Limerick did. It was it was a masterclass really in how to get over the line and win All Ireland four in a row. So yeah, all credit to him.
Mark is gone as well now, is he?
Yeah. Kieran, what did you think?
You can hear me now, can you?
We can.
Yeah, very good. No, I think look, I think Kilkenny, I suppose they from the start, like, they brought a serious work rate, and to me it reminded me of the 21 semi-final against Waterford when they came out of the blocks, and they really they were tackling in 2s and 3s, and the huge intensity. I think they just suffocated Limerick, and I suppose they didn't get their own game going, and they were playing in Kilkenny's terms. But I think the side effect of that for Kilkenny is it's so energy sapping, and to do that for 70 minutes is probably near impossible at the pace the game has gone now. I think Limerick probably weathered the storm, early second half, and like the scoreboard showed that, like 5 points after maybe 20 minutes for Limerick. I suppose it was something they don't associate with them, but just like even getting shots off, I don't even think they created that many shots either. It was just that Kilkenny suffocated and Limerick didn't get their passing game going. But I suppose it was similar to the Galway game and how it played out. Limerick got I suppose Galway got ahead. They were 6 points up, and Limerick got a few scores for half time to narrow the gap. And it was, similar yesterday, where I think Limerick scored 4 of the last 5 points in the first half to bring it to a 3-point game. And I think going in at half time, Limerick would have been happy, especially with that breeze. I think to me that was a 4 or 5 point breeze. They're going to be playing, but I think it probably the breeze intensified as well as the game went on. But I think the goal aside for Kilkenny, I think that was only a little blip for Limerick in the second half. I think Limerick came out. People will say maybe the last 20 minutes, but I think Limerick were in full control of that whole second half. They probably got 2 or 3 points in a row before the goal. I think after the goal, then they scored the next 5 in a row without response, and that was huge. And I think just the manner of the points as well. One of the downsides to Limerick over the years, or one of their flaws was the shooting accuracy, and I think that's one thing we can't criticise them over yesterday. Like 75% efficiency in front of goal, and especially in that second half, and some of the angles that the points were taken at, I think they were just incredible. I think Kilkenny rue, I suppose, a couple of chances missed. I think their efficiency, they were 54%. And it's not, I suppose it's un-Kilkenny like really, but I think you made a point there, Roy, but I think possibly Kilkenny may be carrying maybe 2 forwards that I suppose on certain days they do it, but consistency, like Mossy Keown can score 2 or 3 goals in one game and then mightn't score for, I think he was very poor yesterday. Yeah. He probably had a goal chance where he slipped, looking just being harsh on him, but that's the you have to take every chance. I said Billy Ryan was poor. I think
Walter as well.
Walter very poor. Yeah, he wasn't in it at all. I think even Cody had he showed great moments, especially in the first half, but I don't think he was on the ball at all in the second half. He was really quiet. And one player really disappointed me was Mullen. I thought Adrian Mullen was sloppy.
Yeah.
He was made a lot of mistakes, especially in the first half when they were on the up.
Yeah.
And I really, really surprised with how poor he was on the day. I great respect, and I think he's going to be an unbelievable player in years to come. But I just don't think he had the best of days yesterday.
No, and even the first half, like as you were saying, sloppiness. Tom Phelan as well, even though he scored 3 points, was times where he failed to control the ball. He actually had time to then roll lift it, and because he was playing that gap, Limerick didn't want to push out after him, and that's what Kilkenny managed to do in the first half. Their half forward line were able to drop deep. So they were able to go short to the full back line and then clear the whole lot when Limerick followed them out. And when they didn't follow them out, they were able to just pick out the half forwards, like Tom Phelan's wing especially. And even though I thought he was a bit sloppy, he still had enough time to get on the ball second time around. Mullen, looked really, even Owen Cody, the first 3 balls that went in, he got his hand to them and never, none of them stuck. But from a Limerick point of view, I thought in the first half, that spell, like against Galway, when they down 6 points, it was really important that they finished the half strong, and they did. That's what I'm saying. Then when they were down 6 points, they didn't panic. They took the right shots in those few minutes, and it kind of saved maybe Kilkenny opening the gap to 7-8 points, which would have given them a chance. Breeze being strong and everything, it still would have kept them in the game maybe. But second half, like we were talking about shot selection, I suppose. Looking back at some of the ones Peter Casey took and Cathal O'Neill, you'd be saying like, oh, they're low percentage efforts. But when your team is in flow and the momentum, then you take those ones on, like, and because invariably they seem to drop over, and they were just an outrageous series of scores, like from all over the pitch. And in some cases, like Kilkenny players had done nothing wrong. They were chasing and hooking, and suddenly a shot is still coming from like, a half grip from the sideline and just slotting straight over. So look, it was an incredible display second half. Kilkenny, again, like it's their forward line really, and it's something that we don't associate with Kilkenny over the years, where before their forward line, sometimes we're keeping them in games in that they'd blitz you for whatever, 2-2-2-3. They just don't seem to have them at the minute. Like, and if this was to be TJ's last year, you know, he's another big man to go for next year, because as we said, like the Billy Ryans and John Donnelly's, it's inconsistency is the main thing about them. You get a work rate from them. Like I think that's a basis from a Kilkenny player. You're going to get a level of work rate and tenaciousness from them. But like in terms of scoring, you have to have forwards that are adding to the scoreboard. It can't all be work rate. You see with the Limerick players, their work rate's incredible, and yet they're also chipping in the scoreboard, and every single one of them, like Seamus Flanagan yesterday, one of his quieter games, but like you still had they still had 4 or 5 other forwards on song, and that's the thing Limerick can do, whereas Kilkenny are having 3 or 4 forwards on off days at the minute. And and if it's Owen Cody and TJ aren't, you know, shooting the lights out, then they're in trouble, and that was the case yesterday.
I think as well, I suppose if you look at the spread of scores, I suppose Limerick had 11 scores from play, but like aside from Deegan and Cody's goal, like Tom Phelan had 3 points, but other than that, it was the likes of Donnelly got up for a point late on, and you know a lot of them are frees. But personally, I think TJ, look, he's an incredible. He's probably one of the best hurlers to play the game. But I think this year, you know, look, he's bringing a work rate, and he won a great ball in front of goal yesterday. But you know, I don't think on this year's form, like we know Billy Drennan is an up and coming player coming in. I don't think they're going to lose too much on what he's done this year. Like Drennan could come in and play the game that TJ played yesterday. I think just, you know, taking the frees, and he is a deadly free taker. Like if he just doesn't miss. But I think like look at the legacy, 36, what he's given for Kilkenny. You know, it's very hard to see him. Will he come back again next year? And I think there will be a few players in that Kilkenny team that are close to stepping away, like Richie Hogan. Again, I think he's on possibly on borrowed time. I think Walter Walsh on yesterday's performance. Walter was he was poor. I think we've seen over the last few years, and I suppose in Cody times as well, he was more of an impact player for Kilkenny coming on, and I suppose running at higher teams. You know, Killian Buckley. You know,
Padraig Walsh as well.
Yeah, so there's a lot of these guys that, you know, take them out, and I suppose what the question mark is what you're left with in Kilkenny. They have a core kind of group of players like Owen Cody and Mullen, a similar vintage. But you know, I suppose there is still slight remains of the Kilkenny teams of the past still hanging in there, and I suppose it's when they step away, you know, how do they replace it? I suppose we look at the 20s team that won the All-Ireland Kilkenny last year, and I suppose Drennan was the obvious choice. He made the step up. You know, we saw him plenty of league games, but I think he's the obvious, you know, replacement for maybe a TJ in the next year or so. But yeah, I think it's outside of that. These big players like
it's not just TJ that needs replacing. The forward line in general need repair.
Yeah,
like,
where do they come from?
Like, see, there's the thing, and I suppose like even Limerick, you've Cathal O'Neill, Adam English. I saw Aidan O'Connor, who we saw had a phenomenal under-20 year last year. He was on the bench yesterday, wasn't used, but they have talent coming through in the forward line. Clare, I suppose, Mark Rogers, Shane Meehan had only a bit part this year, but we saw, you know, another player with potential coming through, Adam Screeney and Offaly, like, and Kilkenny, apart from Drennan, like there's no, before you'd have the names of the up-and-coming Kilkenny lads coming through, and there does seem to be a bit of a dearth there, and you just wonder. The only thing is they're going to be in an All-Ireland semi-final, quarter-final every year, though, so that is the thing. So it doesn't look like there's any team really in Leinster that's going to come for, you know, to challenge their place from qualifying in the top 3. So like they are, if they get things right, they still only need to get it right for All Ireland.
And they'll always have that advantage of being fresh as well, coming into an All Ireland semi final. You know, it's like, you know, beat Galway and you're one match away from an All Ireland final. So
I know at the minute, like it is a huge advantage for them, especially as they're rebuilding. But it just seems like that they don't have, you know, that conveyor belt has kind of slowed down a bit, and it's going to be an issue for them, I think.
Yeah, hopefully, guys, you can hear me loud and clear. But apologies again for the technical issues. I suppose about the Kilkenny setup at the start, guys. Given there was a strong breeze there, Kieran and Rory, did you feel like Kilkenny were a little bit passive here? I mean, they were putting an extra midfielder in. They put TJ Reid into the 40. I didn't think it was a typical Kilkenny performance at the start, you know, really seizing this game by the scruff of the neck. I don't know, Kieran, any thoughts on that?
I agree. I think playing with that win, I suppose, knowing that Limerick are a third quarter or second half team, like, you know, for me, if I was over Kilkenny, I would be saying we need to go out and put a bigger score as we can up before half time with that wind. And I think they probably did play it conservatively. I suppose the goal and any of the goal chances came off mistakes. Really, I think that Cody's goal, I think was Dan Marcy, failed to catch it and it kind of spilled and I know Cody took it well, but it was on the back of a mistake. So yeah, for me, yeah, I suppose maybe they could have pushed on more. They were maybe the 6 points up, but I think Limerick did get that crucial 4 points before half time to leave it it was only a 3 point game. And I think going in at half time, Limerick would have been happier the two teams being only 3 points down with that win because it was a fairly substantial win. And I suppose having scored the 4 points coming into half time, it probably took the wind out of Kilkenny sails a little bit as well.
Yeah, Rory, get you in there as well, because I thought that was the first key major talking point, because I mean, Kilkenny building the 5-6 point advantage, there was an Owen Cody, a chance of a goal that went wide, TJ Reid uncharacteristically missing a free late on, and Limerick slowly but surely creating turnovers and then whittling down that lead to 3 points. I think my kind of gut feeling going in at half time was very much like the Galway Limerick game, that Kilkenny had done most of the hurling, but still we're only 3 points ahead here, Rory. I don't know your thoughts there in terms of the end of that first half.
Yeah, at half time, I kind of thought like Limerick were in a great position because that breeze was really strong. And what Kilkenny managed to do in the first half was kind of avoid dropping ball in the Limerick half back line. And in the second half, they couldn't avoid it because Limerick pushed on, forced a long puck out, and like Dermot Burns was just eating up ball after ball, But in the first half, as you were saying, I thought they should have pushed TJ when they were having joy with high ball in, even though they weren't winning it directly. TJ caught one ball he was fouled for when he went in. I thought they should have put TJ right in with Cody while they were kind of bombarding Limerick with high ball. And as we said there, Cody got his hands to the first 2 or 3 ones, never held they weren't sticking. But they were getting joy off the breaks. Like Will O'Donoghue seemed to be a bit in trouble in the high ball in the first half, and he was dropping back. And either he wasn't winning the clean, or it was just dropping straight down. Kilkenny were they were getting to the breaks quicker at that point. But yeah, if they were going to go for it, you put maybe TJ and Owen Cody right in, and and while they were having joy with kind of high ball dropping in. But yeah, I just kind of sensed the second half that like Limerick were going to push up and make Kilkenny go along. And you're looking at that half forward line and wondering, apart from TJ grabbing a ball, like, Limerick going to have that advantage. Kyle Hayes in the air, Burns in the air, and O'Donoghue, came into it in the second half as well. So, and I thought that switch as well, like David Reedy, who I said was nervy to start, settled in midfield. I mean, Cian Lynch he completely changed. Richie Reid was dominant in that first half and was just kind of holding things together, like looked really good. And that just completely transformed it. He went out of it completely. And Cian Lynch, he's just so good to bring other players into play as well as taking his own scores. But one thing you'd be saying if you're a manager is don't swarm him, because he'll invariably sidestep and get a hand pass out, and suddenly you've overlaps because he sucks in 3 or 4 defenders. Like anyone playing, you'd say just stand him up 1-on-1 and don't get sucked in, but he just draws in players and he just has that ability, like even the slightest bit of room, he can get that pass away. And yesterday was his best game. We saw hints against Galway that he was coming back into form, and then yesterday, like, he was back to his best. Like, and
I think yesterday that was a real captain's performance. I think even in the first half, I think when a couple of Limerick players weren't going well, I think he was, and another man is Will O'Donoghue. I thought he had an exceptional game there. But I think just Cian Lynch, just to see him back in around the midfield area there, and the little dinks and passes, and look, he's incredible. And as I said, it's what he does to create space and make runs for players coming off his shoulder. And I think he did show signs of being the Cian Lynch as what we've seen over the last few years, and I suppose hopefully we'll see more of it next year. But I think player wise, like, definitely into the second half, I don't think you could accuse any Limerick player of not being up at the level required. Like, I think Dermot Burns and Kyle Hayes, I thought they were unbelievable in the second half. The ball they won, just going forward, how strong they were. And I suppose into Peter Casey, and like Peter Casey, I suppose he carried off from where he left off in the final in 21. He was showing that same type of form in the first half against Cork in 2021, the final. I suppose injury took him out last year, and I think this year, for me, Peter Casey's been a bit frustrating. I don't think it's any fault of his own. I think he's been kind of deployed, further away from goal, and I suppose it's the work rate he brings. But to me, like, Peter Casey, if you put him in that position in front of goal, he is a top class, from any angle, both sides, like he'll take scores from any angle. And to me, that was the classic Peter Casey yesterday in that second half. Scoring 5 points and top quality points, every one of them. I think like yesterday was as close to the best, as good a performance you will see for 30 minutes in hurling. I think it's even up there with the second half against Tipperary in the Munster final a couple of years ago. I think it's as good as that performance.
Yeah, and as well, it was something we had said before the Munster final, like, would they put Peter Casey inside and let Flanagan roam around? So I'd like to say maybe it was one thing we got right, maybe that John Kiley didn't. One thing. Whereas, because imagine if you're a cornerback having to mark Casey inside with space. His feet are so good, like he's just able to drop a shoulder. And he, again, also like Galan, he's the ability to score over his shoulder running out the field. Yeah. As we saw at that last point, he got like, you can't mark that. Like, you're trying to keep him outside, and suddenly it's over the bar anyway. So I just think he's a huge threat inside, and maybe like Limerick look at things like stats wise and stuff. Maybe he was having an influence out the field, in terms of force and turnovers and stuff that wasn't like quite obvious watching it. But he's such a threat inside, like, and like the scores he got like were phenomenal scores. It was interesting, actually. I know, did you see last night, Dara Donovan coming off to train said he looked around the dressing room at half time and thought, well, Peter will be coming off anyway. Little did he know he'd play one of the greatest second halves, seen.
Absolutely. I don't think it's any fault of Peter Casey. I just think that's where that's the task he's been given. But I think looking back in this year, there was games where we were struggling for scores, maybe especially earlier on in the round robin in Munster, and it was kind of the scores we were relying on Galan and Flanagan for them, and I suppose they never clicked together. I suppose Galan and Flanagan never clicked together. It seems to be one or the other, and I just think having Peter Casey close to the goal just gives you that option. And I think it's the last thing any teams defensively want to see is these three guys lining up, in a conventional 15 and 15, and three of them taken to the full forward line. Like, it would put the shits up anyone, really, wouldn't it? And I think for next year, I'd like to see is that Peter Casey back in the traditional corner forward position.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, look, his versatility is there for everyone to see. But I mean, it was such a brilliant cameo. But I think he touched on it here, lads. Cian Lynch, I thought, absolutely superb when the going was going tough. He was the guy that was really kind of driving things forward. Dermot Burns as well. I know maybe defensively one or two kind of nervy moments, but my God, when the chips were down, these long-range frees, he was keeping Limerick in touch, particularly with the frees. And then, like, 8 points, that monster score in the second half. I was in the Cusack stand. I mean, when that score went up, you could sense the momentum shift completely. I suppose, guys, second half, the Paddy Deegan goal, I think you have to say it's a very opportunistic goal from Kilkenny's perspective. I was having Charlie Carter's comments in my head from Thursday night. 3 goals. Kilkenny needed 3 goals. And I mean, the second goal that was given here
needed 5.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, very opportunistic. But I suppose Limerick defensively a little bit all over the place here, Rory.
That was the only thing, I suppose. There was gaps in the first half. Like, the Owen Cody, when he went for the second one, was a half chance. And by right, at the time, Limerick were scoring 3 points in a row. He should have cut back out and taken the point, I thought, just to stem the flow. Like, he went for a really tight angle, and I didn't, it wasn't on as such. And look, it whizzed the post or whatever, but it still wasn't the right option at the time. But the Paddy Deegan, like, he does play in the forwards for Lachlan Gales a good bit at centre forward, wing forward, and you could just see even the first point he got at the start of the game. You see he was comfortable shooting from, up the field, as a lot of halfbacks are now. But it took the goal really well. And even there was another chance, as Kieran said, where Keown slipped, like, where he would have been straight through. And then there was one where, like, Tom Phelan would carry the ball straight in, and probably again should have taken his point, but kept going. And he had men to pass to, never got the head up. He had men in his left, and he was expertly hooked, and that was a chance over. And Limerick, I think, went up the field and took a score from it. So, it was a double blow, that one. But there was one stage, talking about Dermot Burns, where any ball pucked within like 20 meters of him in the air, he was just coming onto ball after ball in the air. And you could just, like, Owen Murphy was looking out the field, I'd say, looking at him at one wing, Kyle Hayes at the other wing, getting no joy off Will O'Donoghue second half either, just going, where am I going to puck this ball? And it's maybe something like Kilkenny should have, like, maybe had runners coming back in front of their half back line from deep, just to give him an outlet for the ball, because he didn't seem to have a short outlet, and it was just swamped up time and time again.
I think I saw a stat last night. I'm trying to recall it in my head, but I think Kilkenny won 8 of their own 21 long puckouts. I think which is a sign it wasn't working, and maybe Murphy should have gone shorter, or maybe some of them just to to retain possession. But definitely in that second half, I think between Burns and Kyle Hayes, I think they caught the world about.
Yeah, because I was behind the goal for Owen Murphy, and he was cutting more of an exasperated figure in that third quarter. He was screaming at guys literally to even come out the pitch, create a bit of width, even a short puck out. But again, I thought Limerick's pressing, definitely forward line, doesn't get enough credit here. But I thought Gillan, Flanagan, they were kind of making an awful lot of Kilkenny defenders very nervous getting the ball and basically running it out of defence. So Murphy had no option but to hit middle third, and we kind of know it's an invariable story, isn't it, with Limerick when they're in the groove, they're creating turnovers, and so it kind of proved. But guys, 21 points in that second half. I think you've alluded to it perfectly, guys. Some of the scores were just top quality stuff, and chatting away to a few guys from Mooncoin from Kilkenny, you could only but admire the pace, the movement, but the score selection here. You get that kind of flow for a winner. I remember when Offaly did it to Limerick a few years ago, particularly in the last 10 minutes of an All-Ireland hurling final, things were just going over. But Kieran, from a Limerick perspective, like left, right, sidelines, particularly the Gillan point as well, to go 4 points up, the Flanagan interchange was absolutely superb. So, to be fair, Kieran, incredible stuff here from Limerick.
Absolutely, and I think that shot selection in front of goal is something we've been craving all year. I think any game Limerick have played, we're kind of going right. We need to improve our shot selection and improve our efficiency in front of goal. And I think yesterday it just clicked. Like there was a time during that second half where any shot that was taken was just sailing over. But I think look at the team, like they're not reliant on any one player. They're like I don't think Tom Morrissey had his best game yesterday scoring wise, but he worked like a dog. He gave everything for the time he's on the field. Grohl Hegarty, people say, oh, he's one of the players for finals. He turned out he had two massive points. Not his best day either. And I suppose I think if you look at other teams where the likes of Grohl Hegarty and Tom Morrissey don't perform, they might be in trouble. But I just think if they don't perform, other lines pick it up. Like our half-back line yesterday was exceptional. Then Peter Casey and obviously Gillan was well held by Hugh Lawler. But, I suppose that point you mentioned there out in the sideline, the pass from Shamie Flanagan to go the few up, that was a huge point. And I think it's just we're not reliant on certain players. Like Kilkenny are going to rely on Cody, or Galway relying on Conor Whelan. I don't think Limerick are reliant, and I think it's supposed a testament to what John Kiley says is it's next man in, and they truly do believe that it's not based on players, it's the team effort, and I suppose they're a joy to behold, and I just think no matter where you're from, I think I've had a few people talking to me yesterday on the way out, and even Kilkenny fans, they said they're just a joy to watch when they're in full flow.
Absolutely. Rory, I'm conscious of time here. We may change tack a little bit here, just in terms of your team of the year and also probably hurler of the year here, Rory. I know we're going to probably have an end of season review in the next week or two, let the dust settle a little bit on this Intercounty Hurling Championship. But from your perspective, maybe hurler of the year first and then head into your team of the year.
Yeah, I disagree with the lads last night on RT. I'd go with Aaron Gillan as hurler of the year because Limerick wouldn't have been in the All-Ireland series only for Aaron Gillan in Munster this year. He's phenomenal. When the other players we spoke about, the Hegartys were off form, Keane Lynch, Kyle Hayes, as we know, came into it from the Munster final on. But they wouldn't have been in the Munster final if it wasn't for Aaron Gillan, who was consistently excellent day in, day out. And even yesterday, okay, he had a couple of wides in the first half, but he's still 2 or 3 points from play. Created space for other players as well by dragging Hugh Lawler around the place too. I wouldn't say he had a bad game whatsoever yesterday. He didn't get as much supply as he got, let's say, in the Munster final, but because there was scores being taken from further out the field as well. But yeah, so he'd be my hurler of the year. And then team of the year, I just have it down here. Murphy in goals. I had Hugh Lawler, Morrissey, and Barry Nash, my full back line. Burns, John Conlon, and Kyle Hayes, my half back line. Donald Donovan.
We're the same so far, Rory. Come on, keep it going.
Donald Donovan and Tony Kelly midfield.
No.
Shane O'Donnell, TJ Reid, and Tom Morrissey, and Galan, Whelan, and Cody. So there's mine. And I was shocked. I was shocked last night. Now I don't know if you David Fitzgerald there, Kieran, have you?
I have, yeah.
Okay, I'd have thought going through Clare's games this year that Tony Kelly was a level above David Fitzgerald, especially in Munster. Like going through before I go through some Tony Kelly against Waterford, 13 points, 4 from play. Against Cork scored 2-4, 1-4 from play. Scored 4 points against Limerick from play. Scored last week. Looking back again, I thought he was brilliant second half. He was back deep winning, and it's side of Tony Kelly we hadn't really seen before. But yeah, I just thought Jackie Terrell came out with a comment last night saying, "Oh, he didn't do it against Kilkenny, so he isn't in." But yet he was kind of making excuses for some Kilkenny players who didn't have, like he said, Mikey Butler didn't have a great final, but he did it. You know, it was like a different. So I don't know. I just if nobody knew who Tony Kelly was and he had played this year, he'd have been. It's just the fact people expect him to score maybe 8-9 points a match for that, but I just thought he was stand out. That's my only one, and I would say compared to David Fitzgerald this year, I thought he was at a different level than. No, David Fitzgerald came into it a bit like Kyle Hayes as the year went on. He came more and more into it, but anyway, we'll dissect it again, and lads, cheerio and congratulations again.
Yeah, cheers, Rory. Yeah, have a good day, and sure we'll chat in a few weeks. I suppose, Kieran, get your hurler of the year and team of the year, I suppose.
Yeah, I think for me, I agree with Rory. I think Galan has been key to getting Limerick where we've been this year, especially in the earlier games. You know, as you go back to the start of the year where there was rumours and speculation he wasn't going to play at all due to off the field reasons, but you know, I think he really hit the ground running, and I think in that Munster final, I thought he was incredible. Look, he was getting an endless supply of ball into them, but you know, he's really tested fullbacks all year, and I think for me, I don't think there's anyone. I think Tom Morrissey was definitely up there in the earlier rounds. I suppose from the league into the earlier rounds of Munster, he was very, very good. I suppose at the end of the year, like I think looking at the Sunday game, like Kyle Hayes has been really impressive the last 2 days out, but I think he's been a slow burner all year. It's kind of like a building week on week, and you could possibly say the same for Hegarty as well. But I would nearly have Diarmaid Burns in for nomination ahead of Kyle Hayes, just based on the, you know, I think Hayes has been incredible the last 2 days, but there were some games in Munster where I didn't think he was that good. But yeah, for me, I think it's Galan. I think Galan has been there like the last nomination for All-Star. Like he was nominated last year, you know, didn't get it, and probably rightly so ahead of Burns. But you know, I think it's consistency. He's been there, you know, and I think at this stage, and I think it'll be some achievement for Patrick as well if he does. Just the fact that, you know, Keane Lynch has picked it up, Burns has picked it up, and you know, if Galan picks it up, I think it'll be some achievement for them as a club alone. But for me, I think in goal, look, it's a flick of a coin really between Owen Murphy and Nicky Quaid. I think Nicky Quaid in years gone by would have the one up on Murphy on his puckouts. I think Owen Murphy has improved, you know, tenfold, especially this year. You know, I suppose we all know Kilkenny have been kind of mixing the game up a bit under Ling, and I go back to that Tipperary game earlier in the league where they were poor and they looked like a team that were struggling, but I think they've really, you know, as the year has gone on, they have made huge improvements in the short game, as they call it. But I think for me, just that save last week, Owen Murphy, what other keeper? I think that alone is probably going to win him the All-Star. And I think before that, like, it was a flick of a coin. Nicky Quaid has done nothing wrong. I think the 2 goals yesterday, I don't think exactly was done about him. I think all year Limerick have conceded 6 goals, which is a huge testament to their full back line as well as Nicky Quaid. But I think just for that save alone, I think Owen Murphy will win the All-Star. My full back line, you could make case for all 3 defenders. Obviously, Limerick have conceded 6 goals, but I think Hugh Lawler probably deserves a nod, because I think he held Galan out of all the fullbacks Galan has come across this year. I think Hugh Lawler did a great job, and last year on him. So for me, I've gone with Barry Nash, Dan Morrissey, Hugh Lawler as my full back line. The half back line, I've gone for Diarmaid Burns, John Conlon, Kyle Hayes. I think the two wing backs nearly picked themselves. But I think Will O'Donoghue was definitely deserved a mention there. I think the last 2 days, I just think like it's a hard switch to go from midfield to centre back, and I think the way he's done it, especially yesterday, I thought he was incredible in parts of that first half when I think Limerick were a little bit struggling. And again, the last day, he might have looked a little bit at times lost, but I think yesterday, he did what he had to do, and I think a little bit harsh. I don't have him in my team of the year, but I think he's. I think Conlon, I saw him in the Munster final and the earlier rounds. I just thought he was incredible, just at the age he is, and what he does for Clare. And I think Clare without Conlon are a different team as well. And I suppose that's a testament as to how good he is. My midfield, Rory disagrees, but I think David Fitzgerald. I've been impressed with him, last year into this year. I think when he ran direct at defences, that he caused them huge trouble. I suppose the Dublin game is of note, but I think he was one of them players, the go-to players that, to carry ball for Clare. And I thought he had a very good year. And I think Darragh Donovan, he's probably one of the unsung heroes in the Limerick team. I think, he got the man of the match in the semi-final, but I think he's just been incredible. His distribution, I think with Hannah missing as well, it's important that we have players just want to get the ball inside. I think he's one of them guys who's picked up that mantle of getting the ball in there to the likes of Gillan and Flanagan. And I think he's been, I suppose he would have had critics over the last couple of years, but I think this year he's answered a lot of critics, and he's worthy of a place in that team. And I think he's had a very good year. And for me, in the half forward line, I've gone with Tom Marcy. Look, at people will say the last 2 days he's been subbed off early, but I think he's, while he's been on the field, maybe not scoring the 3 or 4 points we usually accustomed with Tom, but just the work he brings. I think he worked his socks off yesterday, and I think, don't forget, this is a hurler a team of the year, and I think a big part of that year, Tom Marcy was crucial. Early into the league and into the early rounds of Munster, Tom was unbelievable, and he was, probably on a short list for hurler of the year at that stage. I suppose the last maybe 1 or 2 games he hasn't been up to his own levels, but nonetheless worked his socks off, and for me, I think deserves a place. Centre forward, Shane O'Donnell, I think he's been, for Clare. I suppose since he's kind of bulked up and I suppose moved out to the full forward line the last 2 years, I just think he's been incredible. I think he was one of them players in the semi-final against Kilkenny that did take it to Kilkenny, and I think well-deserved place. For me, the other half forward, I'm gone for Tom Phelan for Kilkenny. I think he's, this year I think he's had a really good year. I suppose he was, maybe brought along the scene last year. Cody was bringing him in, started a few games, but I think this year, I just think he's incredible. And going back to yesterday, I think 3 points from play. I think he created Paddy Deegan's goal. He took the run in and get the pass off. I just thought he was lively. He made a few mistakes, but a young guy in an All-Ireland final, and I think this year alone will do the world a good for him going forward. And I think he's going to be one of the more important players in the Kilkenny team over the next few years. He mightn't get the applause for this year, but I think he's been really impressive. And then the full forward line, I think Gillan, I think his name goes down automatically. Owen Cody, who's had a very good year as well. And I've gone for Conor Whelan. I think he's, of that Galway team, we'll pick flaws in him very easily, but I just think that, I suppose the game against Tipperary, was it 160 scored, and again, in the against Limerick, that first half, really, really impressive. Died off in the second half, but I think it was going to be a one man band performance, in the second half, because I think the whole Galway team just died down. But I think for Galway, I just don't think they would have been even in that semi-final, only for Whelan. So I think, for me, so 4 Kilkenny men, 3 Clare, 1 Galway, and 7 from Limerick, and I think that's pretty unbiased, if I can say so myself.
Yeah, tough job there, Kieran. Fair play to you. I suppose hurler of the year for me, he may not get nominated, but I'm going to just throw it out there. Doon's Darragh O'Donovan. I think he's just been exceptional from minute 1 of the championship. He's been an ever-present. The amount of possessions, link-up play, key points during the season. I'm thinking of Cork particularly. He's had a few man of the match displays here for me. I think ultimately it should go probably to Aaron Gillane. I know a few years ago when I was running this account and Limerick went down to Nolan Park and were shooting everywhere bar over the bar. We had Aaron Gillane kind of waiting on the outside in. And again, this guy has not disappointed from a Limerick curling perspective. And yeah, I think it's going to be a combination. I think it's going to be an incredible feat for Patrick Swell. As you say, Dermot Burns, Keane Lynch. I think Aaron Gillane is primed now. I mean, given the victors here, I think, as you say, particularly in Munster, when Limerick were on the pin of their collar, let's be brutally honest about it, he was the guy. So I think from my perspective, I think Gillane, but I think there's honourable mentions there for Owen Cody as well, because I think Cody, even his club form at Ballyhale, he continued in with the county. I particularly think about that Wexford game at the Leinster Hurling Championship down in Chadwick Park. Like, he was exceptional. The pace, the devastation in terms of his goal-scoring ability. So I think an honourable mention there, but yeah, I think Gillane gets her of the year. But I think O'Donovan really would be kind of a keynote nomination here, potentially. I don't really have too many arguments, Kieran, in terms of your all-star team. The one thing I would say about Nicky Quaid is I think the general media treatment of him leading into this All-Ireland final has been nothing short disgraceful in terms of a few things that were basically passed on him, particularly on the feigning of injury, all this sort of stuff. I thought yesterday he really showed an awful lot of class in terms of his distribution, particularly in that second half. The Kyle Hayes point for me really exemplifies Nicky Quaid. Or Kyle Hayes makes the run, a 40-metre run. He doesn't even have to break stride. He's just his accuracy. He is basically transcended in terms of puck-out distribution. And to be fair, he had no chance on the goals, but I think he's just overall command of his area is just exceptional. But look, I think Owen Murphy definitely will get the nod, given that Peter Duggan save. And to be perfectly honest to Murphy, I saw him at full view yesterday and he struck a very frustrated figure. He could sense things were really not going according to plan. Any honourable mentions? I'll probably mention Donald Burke from Dublin. I mean, if we're going to say about Conor Whelan being a one-man band, I think you have to mention Donald Burke here. You know, unfortunately, his leg injury had an early departure from the Clare game, but we've raved about him all year. I think, to be perfectly fair, he's free-taking, a superb striker of the ball here, and I think, to be perfectly honest, Donald Burke has been a great standout year for him. I mean, Dublin now going to have to progress a little bit more and add a few more parts to their game. To be honest, I think Conor Whelan as well from Galway really was good. He really kind of burst into life there, particularly in the semi-final and final, and ultimately quarter-final and semi-final. So, yeah, look, I don't have too many holes there, Kieran, in your team of the year, to be perfectly honest. I think David Fitzgerald is a good move there as well. But again, William O'Donoghue, for me, if there is going to be that 16th man, I think that's William O'Donoghue's award, really. He took one for the team, particularly when Declan Hannon went injured. A daunting role in centre half back, and my God, the leadership, just how he embraced it, how he adjusted to that role was just exemplary. And also in terms of the Sean Finn injury, Quilty, you've Richie English as well. So I mean, the versatility of Limerick players to assign various roles here has been nothing short sensational here, Kieran. So, but yeah, no, all good. Look, we'll reflect more on it. Season-ending review. I suppose, Kieran, look, we're both from Limerick, both from Mahan. I mean, for me, Dan and Tom Morrissey, just the epitome of ambassadors for the club and also the county. But for ourselves here, Kieran, maybe I'll ask you the question: what does it mean to you in terms of this Limerick team, the 4 in a row? I mean, they joined the elites, Cork in the 40s, obviously the majestic Kilkenny team 06 to 09. I suppose what it does mean to you in terms of this accomplishment that was achieved yesterday.
Which it's incredible. Like, it's hard to put words on it. I think back in early 2018, if someone was to say, you can win the All-Ireland this year, but that's going to be it for 5 more years again, I think everyone would take their hand off. I think I suppose Limerick, it's a proud sporting city, between, I suppose, hurling, I suppose, is always up there, and the rugby as well. But I think, just an incredible bunch of lads. I think we all got a little bit excited around the, I suppose 2015, 15 when they won the 21s title against Wexford, where they beat them by 24 points. And, that night I could sense, remember that final in Thurles, I could sense that there was a lot of good players in this team, and they played, like, I came away thinking, like, that was as close a performance to me, like compared to like Barcelona and soccer, the way they passed the ball around. And I suppose John Kiley was manager at the time, and I was so impressed with the style of play and how comfortable they all were in the ball. And that night, I could sense there was a lot of good hurlers in this team that would come up. Now, did I think that a couple of years later we're going to be 4-in-a-row champions? And let's not forget the All Ireland in 18. People talk about 4-in-a-row, but it's actually be 5 in 6 years. And a lot of people say unlucky in 19, or we should have won. Look, you have to go and win them, and we didn't. We didn't win at 19. That's long and short of it. But I think it's the last 4 years have been incredible. They've had hurdles thrown at them every year. I think injuries is the big one. Look, every team faces injury, but I think the quality, the players, like last year to win the All Ireland without Cian Lynch and Peter Casey, this year to win it without Sean Finn and Declan Hannon. I just think it's an incredible, like that. We're not reliant on players, like it's a squad, and I suppose we're starting to say what John Kiley says in interviews and what players say in interviews, that they're a squad and they battle together and next man in. And I suppose it's true. It all makes sense that when someone goes down, there was rumours yesterday that Barry Nash was injured and not going to play before the game, and you're kind of thinking, Jesus, we've been already hit with Sean Finn and Rich English, but I'm sure if Aaron Costa was given the nod, he would do just as good a job of what Barry Nash would do if that was the case. And I think, we had barren times, but Jesus, these are brilliant times, and I think it would be hard to see, it would be hard to back against them going next year and trying to do the ultimate and become the team on top that to win the 5 in a row. Look, we're going to enjoy our 4 in a row, and we'll enjoy the All Ireland for this year. But the talk will soon turn to next year, and I think if we're going to have to bring in fresh guys, I think that's the key, is to keep bringing fresh legs in. And I think there is a couple of young guys that are. I think Aidan O'Connor, he got named on the bench yesterday, who's highly tipped to make it up and coming. Shane O'Brien, who we saw big parts in the league this year, Donegal Dálig, so there is fresh legs, I suppose, young guys wanting to get into the setup, and that is required. I think we saw that with Kilkenny teams over the years, every year the 1 or 2 extra coming in to push for jerseys, and I think there's no question over Limerick's hunger and the I suppose the appetite, and this is the year on year, like this is like they're together since 2017, so they're 7-8 years together now, and to still have the hunger, as a one unit, I think it's incredible. And they're giving their youth, their best years to the supporters of Limerick, and all we can do is thank them, because these are incredible times to be a Limerick supporter.
Oh God, absolutely, Kieran. I think you captured the mood perfectly there. I think there's a few points for me. I think primarily the whole kind of journey of this team. I think that Wexford under-21 team was very much catalyst. But even going back, remember that minor semi-final loss to Galway and Croke Park. And I think for a few teams, that kind of team of Cian Lynch, guys like that, that could have buried a few counties back in the past. So they've had resilience here throughout. An awful lot has been thrown at them in terms of the injuries, in terms of teams really trying to get to Limerick's level here. I mean, the season, particularly Munster, was red hot. I mean, Clare provided formidable opponents, same at Cork. Waterford first round really put it up to Limerick. So I think, to be fair to Limerick, they've been on the pedestal now for so many years. It's just a testament to them that if you look at the championship, they've only lost one championship game in the last 4 years, and that was against Clare, narrowly by a point in the Gaelic round. So I think from that perspective, it's been brilliant. Also, this mantra of the team in terms of focusing in on the performance, improving, making the adjustments, adaptation. Again, I'm kind of in the project management full-time job, but the fact that they talk about these things, it's all about the process and really saving their best to last yesterday, Kieran. I mean, 75% shot percentage. They were within the 50-60 range during the season. To go 75% in tricky conditions like that is really a testament to the coaching. I think it's a testament to the backroom staff and also the players, to everyone here. I mean, I remember walking out of Crow Park many a year before 2018, tail between the legs, getting absolutely hammered. Felt the roles were reversed yesterday with Kilkenny and Limerick yesterday. I mean, Kilkenny did it to us in 2007, and we've done exactly the same to them here, I mean, it's an incredible feat. I mean, this is going to be a team to be talked about for decades to come. And I think it's just a case now, as you say, new players coming into the fold here. And I think certainly Adam English, I'll add to that as well, along with Aidan O'Connor. There's certain guys here that are ready to kind of come on, burst into this panel, provide more energy, provide more fresh blood in here. And I think everything's boding very well here for Limerick. And I think it's just a matter of the performance, Kieran. I think just the second half wise, we've seen it against Cork in the All-Ireland, that opening half was sensational. This, I think, really and truly usurps this. I mean, just the pressure that they were put under by Kilkenny, other teams I think would have folded at that stage. But it was just the mental fortitude to just not give in. And, I mean, straight up, Barry Nash, basically, we've talked about here, bursts up the pitch, point, great response, and then the rest of the day is history. So, I mean, this is a team that is going to be here for many years to come. And I think for opposition here, I think it's going to be a big job to
I think as well, just as well on top of that, Mark, like every day they go out, they're going to get the best performers from the opposing team. They're going to throw everything to try and beat this Limerick team.
Yeah.
And I think off the field as well. There's a lot of dirt that gets thrown at certain players off the field. Social media is a new part of life that maybe that Kilkenny team didn't have to deal with. And some of it is borderline. It's full disgraceful. I think certain players have been targeted in the media. It's bullying, and to deal with that along with everything else as well. And to be honest, I'm going to give the tip of the hat to Kilkenny yesterday, just to the supporters. And I think anytime I've ever been in the field or in the crowd with Kilkenny supporters, is just they're true hurling people. They every one of them I talked to yesterday, just congratulations, well done, super team. And I think a lot of other counties could learn from that. Just there's no, they're just a joy to people. I suppose don't like Kilkenny because of the success they've had, but I just think they're true hurling people, and they recognise that how good a team Limerick were yesterday, and that they were beaten by the better team. And I just thought they were just very sporting in the way they dealt with defeat, compared to what Tipperary would have, suppose.
Yeah, but in fairness to the Kilkenny supporters, the ones that were around me stayed around. Saw Hill 16 particularly, an awful lot of the young kids, they all stayed around for the trophy presentation. I think some certain counties, you would have seen the fan base just literally scatter out of the grounds even 5-10 minutes from time. Look, we've been down in Kilkenny plenty of times here, Karen, on social occasions, and to be perfectly fair, they know they're hurling inside out, and I think they know that the team gave as good as they got here. They just fell up short, and I think to be fair to Kilkenny, it's no better county to kind of bounce back from a disappointment like this. Other counties, this could sink for years, but this is Kilkenny. This is a new management team. This will be players now looking to kind of maybe bring it on again next season. So I think it's great words there, Karen. I thought it was just an incredible encounter, really. And the fact that Limerick had to score 21 points in that second half, I think really summarises everything you need to know about this Kilkenny challenge. The challenge was put there. It was a formidable one. And it was really just the spectacular nature of the performance of Limerick here really set it apart. So I think it's going to be a game to be talked about, I think, for particularly in Limerick circles for quite a long time. But I think GA historians, if they're pointing back to marvellous performances, I think this Limerick performance in 2023, particularly that second half, is going to tick an awful lot of boxes in terms of the composure, the strength, the determination, but also the skill and the accuracy here. I think it has just been an absolute outstanding achievement by the team. And the homecoming in Perry Square tonight should be an absolutely majestic occasion, which I'll be heading down to this evening. You should see a few photographs hopefully on my social media feeds later on in the week anyway. But I suppose, Karen, we'll probably wrap it up there. It's been a lengthy one, but I think, we need to come on today, really kind of decompress in terms of everything. But yeah, many thanks, Kieran. I suppose the next few weeks, look, we'll let the dust settle here, but maybe we'll have our end of year inter-county review here and kind of have our highs and lows for the year. But I suppose, Kieran, until then, thanks very much. Enjoy the celebration.
Cheers.
and we'll take care.